Here we go.
All right. What's up, everybody? Future Cannabis Project is at you with another Friday show. We're still waiting on our guest, actually. I had a gentleman named Craig. He was one of Bruce Pearl Owen's relatives, buddies, somewhere in his circle. I'm still waiting for him. I haven't heard back from him this morning. I've messaged him like 3 times. So hopefully he pops on here in a few. Until then, you just get to see your boy's face and just listen to me ramble on. So we can have a cool conversation in the chat. And I'm going to smoke some Durban Poison. My buddy David, you all know David. He came through yesterday with some like 3 phenos of Marshmallow OG, which I was absolutely impressed with last night, with 1 little nug of Durban Poison that he insisted was consumed through a bong all by itself. So we're going to check. He said him and the other homie David got down on a bowl and they were like giggling for hours. So this is going to be a fun one. Yeah, I was really kind of stoked to have Craig on because his whole deal was like the other side of Bruce's story, if y'all remember. And basically, Craig's job was essentially to run the docks. So he would, be at the end when Bruce came through with his boats. Like, this was the cat who coordinated where everything like was going, who was taking, like how long this is all happening. So he coordinated a lot of that. And then the fascinating part to me was he was like the bookkeeper. And this is the part that really like I wanted to get into because everything back then, right, was evidence. So to understand how to track all this shit and not leave like a paper trail is fascinating to me. Because that was basically, how they were going to hem a lot of these guys up once they caught them was like, yeah, here's the money, right? This is what constitutes as like racketeering or, that is where they get all that from, aside from the volume of product that they move. So I'm like, part of my questions for this cat was like, first off, how the hell did you get that much money across the border to the cartel? And then how do you know who got what, how much went out? Like, I don't know. It's just a really interesting side of the conversation to me. There's a lot that kind of happens with this, the smuggling business, especially 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. We were, I think, before all the internet tech got out, it was a lot easier to move, right? Like they had radio and shit like that, but without internet, it was a lot easier to move around and not have everybody kind of tracking you. So there's a broader picture to be painted with all these smuggling stories, and part of that picture, and I wasn't sure how to introduce this, and so we just did it, and I appreciate some of your guys' reactions. But at the end of the day, like the snitch side of this all was, it's part of it. Even the good cats had to work around, who's going to tell on me. And I think there's a lot of gray area in that kind of stuff. I'm not advocating for ratting people out, but I also am like, if you help put a murderer away and they weren't in your circle, I don't see that as like ratting anybody out aside from the murderer that possibly could have gotten your family. You know what I mean? Like, so there's varying degrees with that. But it's all part of what you had to deal with if you were moving stuff back then. And I think that's, as cannabis consumers and people who are like, we're all like, this is a harmless plant. So I don't see any controversy around it. But at the end of the day, like it was illegal. They were moving massive amounts over the border. And every single trip, right, was a risk, not just for law enforcement, not just, being burned by maybe the cartel, but, people other people that could roll on you. So, it's just kind of wild to me how, we have to really understand the whole picture, and part of that picture is what happens when you get burned. You know what I mean? So I I didn't know how any other way to present it to everybody other than just have a few cats on the show that have been in that part. And I think, to me, it's really dope that, a lot of us still uphold a certain code. And I think there's boundaries to that code. But at the end of the day, like, it's nice to see so many people be like, no, this is part of what it is. Like, the no snitch thing is important. And I think, again, there's boundaries. I think there's varying degrees, but the whole smuggling thing is just a fascinating realm for me. And I don't necessarily want to, exclude anything because it makes people uncomfortable. It's one of those things that I feel like, even now, where there's states that aren't legal fully, there's people who operate under the radar still. And I don't want anything to happen to them. You know what I mean? I don't want any, but we all still have to be very aware. And I've got a few, I don't know how to bring it up without, outing the region they're in, but I've got people I work really closely with that are helping medical patients, like, at the end of their life. And the reality of somebody telling on them is still very real. And that could even happen passively, right? And this is kind of one of those gray areas where it's like, if I'm on here talking about it on the internet and I release too much, that's snitching. Whether it was intentional to get me out of trouble or not, just accidentally or passively dropping more information than you should can result in somebody getting hemmed up. So I'm really, I really understand that code of conduct. And some of my buddies, they're so comfortable in what they do, they forget where they're at. And I'm like, you gotta mellow down on the messages and the phone calls, because there's even more happening. That's why I was going with the internet. Like, iOS taps all of your encrypted shit through your phone, so it's no longer like, oh, I can use Telegram or Signal and all of my shit is encrypted. It's not like that anymore. Like, your iPhone records it and police are tapping right into that. They don't even have to go through the app. They just go right into your phone. So everything you talk about, everything you type can ultimately become evidence. Did you rat on yourself? Did
freaky.
Yeah, it's nuts. So it's like,
So and sorry, this is a new thing where Telegram is no longer as secure just because they're collecting the data at like the point of tapping.
yeah, yeah, straight off your phone, because
I mean,
Apple,
it's like the creepiness of like I almost feel like I think something and then I'm served an ad on like
yeah,
Instagram like 6 hours later and I'm like, or like I say something out loud and then I'm like,
yeah.
and you're just like, what the fuck is going
Yeah,
on?
yeah, yeah. And all that runs through, whether it's an iPhone or a Samsung. I hear Samsungs are a little bit more like, it's harder for them to get to, but Apple specifically, their, I guess it's iOS, whatever their like main server is, or however that works. They basically stored that information with them. So government agencies don't have to go through WhatsApp. They don't have to go through Telegram. They can just go right to your phone. And there's settings, and I wish I had the how-to tutorial, but there's settings on how you can turn that off so that it doesn't like completely stick around, or your phone doesn't like record it and document it, however that works. But yeah, it's kind of crazy
Yeah.
how That
At first, this didn't make sense. I was like, "What? You want to take out mail carriers? Like all my all the mail carriers I know smoke weed." And then the clarification, I think they were talking about
like the carrier pigeon type shit.
yeah, like the ability to low budget send messages back and forth.
Or you got to go back to like the Native American, what do they call those? The wind talkers, the Cherokee. What's up? And create your own language, essentially. Like if and we tried to do that a little bit with slang, but they pick it up pretty quick, where you almost have to have like a backwards double reverse talk to where it's almost impossible to decipher unless you're an expert in that language. And that's what the Cherokees, I think it was World War II or World War, I can't remember what it was. It was one of the wars. We relied heavily on these Native Americans to move coded messages because nobody else understood what they were saying. And nowadays we're kind of back to that. Like you got to almost create, like I was saying, you got to create a new language that nobody else gets except for the people in your circle. And then you get around that completely. The problem is, how do you teach a mass group of people outside of the internet? You basically have to send carrier pigeons. That's like the only way. You have to encode the way you decode your code. So nowadays, even where it seems more relaxed, you have to be more cautious. Somebody said that there's, head shops getting shut down in Missouri right now. The hemp ban is having a massive effect on some of that. It's, we're seeing raids happen in Oklahoma, like states where it's like legal, medically legal. You're starting to see the 215 days of raids popping back up again. And that's scary as shit to me. I'm like, they're back at it. They're just turning it on and off whenever they want.
I keep bringing this point up of like, it just seems like everywhere things are going backwards.
Yeah. 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 And it's, if this is part of why I wanted to really do this like smuggling theme for a while, was because
we
those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. So we kind of like it benefits all of us to remember where all this started. And
oh, nice.
I imagine that they're not as, people aren't as smart as they used to be. We just have this illusion that we are because of the internet. And I'm not saying everybody's just dumb. I'm just saying there's a lot of people who have relied on the information they can get from the internet and not using a whole lot of critical thinking. Except for, wildly enough, there's a lot of people in the cannabis community who still are very critically thinking, because we all have to be aware of what's going on around us nonstop, and we have to have solutions to all the what ifs. And I think about it all the time. Like, what if the government's just like, no more home grows? What do I got to do in order to maintain my home grow? Like, I'm constantly running through that, especially now. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting time we're living in, where, like Peter said, it almost seems like we're moving backwards. And I think some of us are burned out, where we're just like, fuck it, let it happen. I'll figure out a way to keep hiding. I did it before. I'll do it again. Like, I'll go get those carbon scrubbers. I'll throw back to no more AI monitoring on my grow, where I just watch everything and control everything by hand. Got to do what we got to do. And that's, again, I think chatting with people, from the smuggling days, or even I would like to get into with some people who were growing heavy back before, like, we even got close to medical, even close, like out on the East and shit, because when we started doing the home grow thing, like, the evasion became different, right? Like, Bruce had to run a boat and get around radar and get around patrol and airplanes, eyes in the sky type shit. But once we brought the cultivation into our own country, like, the method of evasion turned. It became different, right? Like, all of a sudden, it's snowing right here in Grand Junction. So I've got snow on my roof. Back
Today?
in, like, even early 2000s before LED really hit, I'd have my high pressure sodiums running, and there would be a section of my roof that would not have snow on it. And that is a pretty telltale sign that you're running a grow. You know, they could use heat guns and check the heat signature of your house. They can look at the power bill. They can look at your water bill, like the smell coming out. So we had to figure out ways to get around that shit. Like it's kind of wild, and that blows my mind. Missouri's trying to tell us you can't make a cannabis business pretty much. So I'm refocusing to produce greenhouse and wholesale tree farm. So that's it. And Missouri, I remember it was like right around the pandemic. Missouri was one of the very first states to actually offer up a micro license. And so there are a handful of people that I know personally that are operating on a micro license in Missouri. And I believe that's beyond just medical. Like, from my understanding, is they're allowed to sell to dispensaries. I don't know. I'm not in Missouri. I haven't really looked into the laws because I'm in Colorado trying to figure out my own shit. But it's kind of wild to me that they let this, they let the dogs out, and now they're going, who did this? Who could have possibly done this? Why are there so many home grows in Missouri? Why are there so many like small license? You guys did it, and now you're trying to rein it back because somebody was pissed over a hemp loophole. It just, to me, it's clear where the money's at. And that's where us as a community have to stay ahead of that. We can't get complacent and like, oh, this is so comfortable, we can just do whatever we want as growers. And at some point, and I've tried to tell my friends this too, like especially in the mushroom scene, like when Colorado decriminalized psilocybin, everybody and their brother started cultivating mushrooms. Every head shop, every grow shop, they all started selling, spores, inoculated containers, all this shit, and people are going nuts. And I'm like, hold off on that for a little bit, because they can pull it back anytime. Even on the medical cannabis stuff, like the feds, and I don't quite understand constitutionally how this works, but if the feds wanted to be like, nope, we're raiding all these states, we're done with it, we're not doing the legal cannabis thing, like, they do whatever they want. You know what I mean? To an extent, I think, like, we're dealing with this.
Do you see this all like the Internet of Things?
Yeah.
Tools,
So that the AC Infinity thing, everybody goes nuts about, oh my God, AI control. This is so badass. AI control. All that information's going somewhere. It's not just like closed in your Wi-Fi loop. Somebody's monitoring all that. And if you think about it, this is okay. So I'm going to go down this like, I'm going to go down this weird rabbit hole.
I've been smoking the Turkish tobacco.
Look, I bet that tastes so good. I want to get into some of that because that's kind of the next part of this three-way blend on the tobacco I'm thinking about. But think about the way we're at with internet. Think about how comfortable everybody's at with sharing what they have going on. Think about this. If Phylos is still around doing what they do, now they have your location and your set environment with genetics that you've been open about. They could create an SOP on everything you've grown as a home grower. So they know the perfect setting for this specific plant. And then you just take it away. You go, okay, we're going to do this, commercially produce this. We're going to do this, hold these genetics, lock these genetics in, and then we're going to use the settings on your AC Infinity as our proprietary cultivation method and patent it. Because they can't patent the plant, but they can patent the methodology on how it produces. And we're starting to see that in certain areas. Yeah. So the going into the psilocybin thing, because it's not 100% legal. It's just like what cannabis was when Colorado first started in the early 2000s. It was decriminalized, which means it was a misdemeanor to walk around on your person with an ounce or less. And that's kind of where we're at with mushrooms right now in Colorado. Is it's decriminalized, meaning if they find your cultivation spot, that's a felony. If they find you selling it, it's a felony. But they've gotten around it with these mushroom churches, separation between church and state. So they've started filing all of these mushroom grows and distribution spots as like churches. And now somehow you can just get psilocybin in a bar and go buy it at a head shop. I don't understand how that all works. But I would say, no, just like with cannabis, know a guy, be close to that person, understand them, understand how they operate and their moral values, and then attach, just use them as your guy. It's kind of like what we did. Like there was a point back in the day where I had like an herb guy that I trusted. And when that guy couldn't come through, it was like, damn it, I don't know what I'm going to get. So yeah. There's this element of illusion in the world of cannabis and mushrooms still, that we're just safe and it's all good. And I'm not trying to fear monger anything, but it looks like they're trying to roll back. Yeah. It's starting to hit like that in Colorado too. Like there's one of the doctor's offices here kind of works off of that, and they run tests on all the batches. Like everything that comes in is tested. So yeah, I don't know. It's just I fucking love that.
That was what I was trying to respond to that with.
I diddly do. But yeah, anyway, we'll get off all that heavy shit, I think. But it just PSA, stay on your toes, fam. Legit. Don't get overly comfortable. Like I tell my wife that all the time. Like when you feel like everything is just going the way you want, you need to shake it up a little bit, because that's how you start missing shit. That's how you start like overlooking the little details. So with that, I still haven't heard from our guest. So Peter, if you want to bring Tim on anytime, if he's down.
Tim's actually painting a house right now, so
son of a bitch.
But I just pinged Bryant, soil doctor, and then
word. So yeah, I'm going to shift gears.
Kevin's going to jump on with us.
So well,
did you talk about what I thought that was an interesting issue with like the lack of rain? It's affecting everybody's.
Yeah, I was actually just starting to get into that, since we're kind of.
So I was going to go rip this while you.
All right.
Continue to monologue like a
as he walks off, his voice slowly fades out. What? But so. A recent phenomenon that I've been in Colorado my whole life. I've been on the Western Slope for 37 years now. And I've never seen this ever in my life. And the Rocky Mountains have zero snowpack, which means there is no runoff into our river. There's a hydro-powered dam that kicks on the pumps that fills all of our irrigation water. The Colorado River is so low that it can't power that dam. What's up? So I'm here in Grand Junction. That's dope to see somebody in Delta on here. So you're familiar then. The Colorado River is at an unprecedented low. I've never seen or... All winter there was zero snowpack on a mesa. Like, unless you live here, it's hard to paint that picture, but usually the top third of that mountain is white. From October all the way through till April. Usually the first couple weeks of May is when we have this like concept of the swan's neck breaks, and that's when the snow has melted off enough that this little image of a swan that's on the side, naturally on the side of a mountain. There's some Native American lore that goes along with that. But basically, when the neck of that swan is no longer connected, we've hit like our last freeze of the valley, and everybody kind of starts thinking about getting their gardens going. There has been no white. You couldn't see the swan, the snow swan, all year. So now we're getting into this time. I think the last time it was like this, like 1912, the Colorado River in Grand Junction dried up, and we're looking at that this year. So with that, the runoff has been absolutely nothing. So it's starting to affect our municipal water to a point where I was talking with David. You guys kind of know him. He's been on, my little buddy co-host. He pops in usually.
Little buddy.
Well, I say that because like all my friends now are like fucking 10 years younger than me. I'm like, holy shit.
So I used to, my girlfriend years ago, I remember we were skiing and we had walkie-talkies. So I was like, and she was like 5 feet tall. So I'd be like, this is big buddy to little buddy, come in little buddy. And then she'd respond like, this is little buddy.
I love it. But yeah, so the runoff has affected our municipality to the point where the bicarbonates in the water have increased to a point where when David is watering his plants, it's making his soil extremely alkali. So now he has to fill up his watering reservoir halfway with tap water and halfway with either distilled or RO water. And that's just to offset all the bicarbonates that are in the water right now. And neither one of us are like water scientists. My neighbor actually is, and I've been wanting to ask him about it. But he...
Oh, wow. Are you serious? Hold on. Is that true?
No,
it's
that's
illegal?
No. They passed that law. They unpassed that law in like 2015, 2016. No, it's 100% legal to collect rainwater in Colorado. They don't even have volume sets on it, so you can collect as much as you can capture on your property. Yeah, I want to say that was like somewhere in like 2012 or like 2015, somewhere in that range was when that was lifted. We aren't on a mandate yet on water restriction in Mesa County, but there's already stuff going up like begging people to not irrigate your lawn and all that shit just because of the fact that we are still an agriculture community and we need those families that farm to get their water. The shitty part about that is even if they farm, they're not going to make enough to make ends meet because all the people that are supposed to be buying their product are outsourcing it to overseas. Eventually, the government will issue a farmer stimulus check that will go back to all these farmers because they didn't meet their required minimum just to stay even. And all those farmers will use that stimulus check to pay off Monsanto, John Deere, Bayer. So essentially, all this water is just going to run into a federal government money laundering operation that they're fronting all of our farmers for. But that's all I'm going to say on that. But yeah,
I would love to at some point, because I think of here in California, like what is it? The people who, well, first of all, like the bottled water companies that can just take as much water as they can put into bottles without ever having to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
And then I think it's what's the brand of pomegranate Wonderful or pistachio Wonderful?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
like those people have such a corrupt sweetheart deal to divert water for themselves.
Yep.
And then small farmers, don't have those same perks.
No, and Colorado's getting really pissed about it. They're actually there's discussion on reevaluating Colorado water rights and restricting how far shit goes west. And the east part of Colorado is kind of doing the same thing, because there's, what do they call that, where there's a point where the water flows west and a point where the water flows east, and a lot of that is in Colorado, and I can't remember what the hell they call it. I wanted to go back up, Dude in Gunnison. You get all your water off, or Dude in Delta, you guys get all your water off the Gunnison, right? It's not Colorado water or Colorado River water. Because it's marshland with cocktails. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of wetland stuff over here too. It's kind of wild that we're in a desert and then we have these random patches of wetland conservations off the Colorado River. I think they implement those, if I'm being honest, I think those are implemented as just like a way to restrict more water diversion. Because that I hear it every single year. Every single election season, something comes up about what to do with the water in Colorado. But
they're certainly not sourcing it locally.
No.
In Vegas.
Everything, because you have to think, like, most of the water that ends up in California is fed through the Colorado River. We were joking, me and my wife were joking. We were like, let's follow the Colorado River all the way to the Colorado-Utah border and just start building a dam. Just cut them all off. But it's wild. I'm trying to remember what it's called. The confluence is where the Colorado River and the Gunnison of the Black Canyon meet. The Continental Divide. That's where the water goes one way and the other way. Like, that's what they call it, is the Continental Divide, I believe.
That's insane. So I've been, like, a lot of Instagram stories about the data centers. I mean, the biggest issue with the data centers is like, it's basically the taking without contributing, right? So yeah. Like, when they do that, I mean, beside, like, issue one is all the people who live around it are like, it's like having like the sun right next door of just weird, like, like bright light, like power generators, lights, like all the time. But then the other thing is, and I think this is kind of what all of us, or most of us, get upset about. It's just like it's pushing costs onto society, yeah, and keeping profit for yourself, right? So like, they're not putting those data centers next to Mark Zuckerberg's house, right? And yeah, where they're putting them, they're not creating jobs locally. It's like 10 dudes to run the whole place, or, that's obviously not totally accurate, but it's not a lot of people, right?
Yeah, the job market is not expensive.
And then like, they take electricity and jack up all the local communities' electrical costs. So it's like, and then they lobby and act like at least they should acknowledge the dickishness of it, right?
Yeah. Oh, and they're trying to justify it. I saw a post the other day that had me laughing, because they went back to be like, the paper mills back in the fucking 30s or whatever consumed 100 million gallons of water a day, and these data centers are only consuming 1,000 gallons of water a day. So these data centers aren't as bad as you would think. And it's like, that doesn't justify shit. And show me the actual data of these paper mills. And we all got pissed over the paper mills too. The amount of destruction that it was happening. And they're over here, like, we do that in arguments all the time, where we'll justify a bad thing by saying there's a worse thing. Like, that argument always blows my mind. Like, it's okay to have data centers because paper mills used to use more water. Well, no, neither one are okay. Like, you can't justify the bad thing with the worst thing.
Right.
So I don't know.
Well, then also, I mean, as I think about it, it's like it'd be cool if a company at least tried to do something like, building a data center, let's say in the Nevada desert, putting solar panel, like trying to power it as much as possible with like solar or solar and wind. Because one of the issues with solar and wind is they have to kind of be built near where people live because you can't really store the electric. So like it has to go on power lines to be consumed, right? So if you have data centers which are hogging it, then you solve that problem. You could build the solar wind combo in the middle of nowhere and then
Yeah,
put a data center next to it. And the data center could even be like dug down, right? So you have like flat desert land. You could dig it down to like 30 feet and have it 10 feet underground so it's not baking in the sun all day,
you
right?
know,
And then below that you could have like
thermal
climate
cooling.
batteries pulling just air in and through. And like if companies were doing that and being like, this is what we're doing, we'd all be like, that's like I like you as a company. You're not the
Yeah,
biggest dick. You're not the biggest douche
right. Well, and
around.
I saw that argument come up. They were like, you wouldn't have to use as much water cooling a data center if you built it in Antarctica or the North Pole. And my mind was like, okay, I get that, but it's a little extreme. But to your effect, like the ground, once you hit, what is it, 6 or 10 feet below ground, you hit a constant 55 degrees. And that's
Right.
geothermal cooling. I was fixing to do it in my greenhouse this year, where you basically bury pipes underneath the ground like 6 feet, and you have an extension coming up, and that thermal cooling will keep your greenhouse like 55, 60 degrees all year round. And they used to do it for housing, actually. I was watching this documentary and at the height of the air conditioning invention, that technology just kind of went away. But there's a large group of people who were, I think it was the Amish, who were literally just using geothermal pipes throughout their house, and it was keeping their shit cold all year round. And we do the same thing with the root cellar, right? You put your root cellar 6 to 10 feet underground, and it stays at the exact temperature as a cave, 55 degrees all year round, because of the capacity of soil, right? Soil is so thick, so dense, that by the time you hit the excess heat of the summer, it still can't penetrate further than like a foot or two into the soil. So there's this massive, just consistent thermal temperature underneath the ground, and you could use that literally by burying your data center 10 feet down.
Right.
Literally just by, yeah.
And all these ideas come to me when I smoke marijuana.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, now that's it. It's like in my head, I'm like, why wouldn't you just start like? And if you were the first, if Facebook was like, we're gonna be even just like to look good to the public, right? Like someone step up and and we may not have the exact right idea, but like at least try something where we all look and say like, at least they're trying, right?
Well, that's just it. Like, show me a minimal amount of effort to help. Like, at this point, it's just like, we're doing what we want. I don't give a
Right.
shit what you guys think. I'll fucking build this shit on the sun, and you guys can pay to cool it.
But
Like,
it's worse than that because since stock stockholder returns are the number one priority, it's like not just fuck all of you, we're going to do this anyway. It's like this is how we are, like we're absolutely going to do this because that's going to pay our shareholders the most.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If
Like
you're talking,
not just we're indifferent, we're like that is the plan.
yeah, yeah. Oh no, 100%. Somebody in the comments says, "I love this guy. He's the one that has the wife that is a doctor of Christianity, right? If you're talking
You know,
about, yeah, if you're talking about
if you
me,
so all right, yeah. If you guys are around Sunday, my wife is out of town, and we could figure out a time to go live on that.
okay, yeah, I'm down. Yeah, yeah.
Is it Christianity or just religious studies?
So okay, and it's not a
Or
doctor.
religious studies with a focus on Christianity?
Well, okay, so I'll kind of line it out on how the because she's a bachelor, she's got her bachelor's, not a doctor. Um, her her degree is in biblical studies with I think they call it a minor in theology. So to just kind of explain this a little bit, biblical studies means she studied all aspects of the way the Bible and the canon of the Bible and all the variations of the Bible are kind of put there together historically. Theology
The
is
first Bible or the second Bible?
all the Bibles.
Okay, so every okay.
So yeah, and I wish I was smart enough to explain this, but the canon
Including
of the
more modern
so
derivatives
like
like the scopes, that would be fun to talk about.
yeah. So that's kind of, and I already have like a line out for her on how to come in with the show because it's really difficult to explain the biblical history and how theology falls into that. So theology is the way that we perceive our faith, right? It's also known as your worldview. Everybody's got a worldview. Even if you say you don't have a worldview, that's a worldview. So this all falls under the category of theology. So even being an atheist is a form of theology. So she studied that, and then together we've used her history and understanding through biblical studies and theology to hone in our faith. So we are both what is considered Orthodox Christian. Orthodox is a Latin word, and it comes from two words, ortho, which means right or correct, and dox is belief.
That's presumptuous.
Very much so. Um,
No, we're clearly the people who have the right belief.
yeah. So,
The rest of you
or,
know.
Orthodox Christianity, and this is what got me. Orthodox Christianity. So, you go into the history of it, the canon of the Bible was put together not by one dude, not in one day. It took a long time to put together all the books that go into the Bible. One concept that's really popular right now is the Ethiopian Bible. It is the same Bible as what the disciples put together, and the people who wrote the books in the Bible put together. They just added their perception to it. So when we talk about all these variations of Bibles, all the same, the main context in all of them is the same. The difference is, did this culture add things that related to their culture? So like you can look at the Ethiopian Bible is one of the oldest. And they put together their version from the canon that was put together from Christ's disciples. This is a historical thing that we can prove because we have the original papers from the books that the disciples or the church fathers put together. That's what the Orthodox, Eastern Christian, Eastern Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, this all comes from the church that the disciples put together. This, and again, this is a history thing, not a theology thing. And that's where I have a hard time breaking it apart. My wife is very good at that.
As you were just talking, I was like, and damn, then some people also study like two things. One, it's crazy that now every single moment of every human being's life is like documented, right, for posterity. Whereas our history from back then, it's like trying to tea leaf like what really happened in a region or why some society like vanished or whatever, and then like also connecting the stories in the Bible to kind of pagan stuff, right? So it's like people
Oh
who
yeah.
know like
Well, and that's
Viking history and like history of like, oh well, the story of this is really like
so,
connected
and
to a story
that's
that was
why a
always
lot of people
told.
think there's pagan stuff in the Bible, because there was a point when the Apocrypha was being read by people who were converting to Christianity. They still held on to some of their pagan traditions, and they used that as a way to slowly incorporate their Christianity into their culture. And this was done by just random people who accepted Christ and was like, but this is still part of our stuff. So it's really kind of wild. And then when you get into the timeline, so before it was called Eastern Orthodoxy, it was called the Way. And that was by Christ. Christ was the one who called the very first church the Way. And then there was a schism, I believe, and this was the separation between Orthodoxy and the Catholics. And the this was basically over like three or four theological
So sorry.
differences.
So this is way before the separation of Catholicism and Protestantism.
Yes, by like
Okay.
1,000 something years.
Yeah.
So the Protestant church is still very new. That happened in like 1700s was
Well, I think that
when
I thought it was the 1400s with the printing press and
it might have been. I have to go back, and it was like
Gutenberg.
October something when a gentleman named Martin Luther paged his
Right.
95. He
Or
fucking
Martin
plastered
Luther.
his 95 thesis statement onto the Catholic church doors and was like, "We're not doing this." And this was because the Catholics were charging for penance. They were basically, the priests were basically like, "Pay me this much,
You were a
and we'll
shitty
absolve your
person your
sins."
entire life.
Yeah. So like Orthodox don't
You
recognize the Pope
you
because
can cut the line if you
yeah,
slip us $100.
yeah, exactly. So that's one of the things that the Orthodox don't agree with Catholics. The other one is the Pope, believe it or not. The Pope is established by a concept called popable infallacy, which basically means like he can't say anything wrong. His voice is direct, like his words come direct from God, and that's heresy. That's heretical in the Bible. It says so. So that's another thing. Like there's a lot of these little things where it's like, let's look at what Scripture says, and then
But that, yeah, and the other thing I'm thinking about is um like on Netflix watching some of like the Medici or that time period where like the Pope is like some douchey guy whose family bought his popehood and he's like banging girls on the side and like just the corruption.
oh,
And
it's
then but some of the stuff, so my assumption is like if you're powerful and in charge of a religious institution, you start to make shit up and rules that kind of like
yep.
favor
There's no
like
checks and
keeping
balance
you where
systems
you
when you
are.
have
And
yeah.
then but then like how much of stuff like that bleeds into stuff that people still believe generations later in a religion, where it was like, oh, that was like a pope in like the year 900 who like whatever, and then like convinced everybody to believe
Well, that's one. Okay, so real quick, that's one of the funny things is everybody, when people say the church, they assume like people typically only think there's Catholic and Protestant. And when they say the church, most of the time they're talking about the Catholic Church, not even realizing like there's one before that. Like there's one before that, and they understand the checks and balance system. So there's like a group of people that go, that's bullshit. If you keep teaching this, we're kicking you out. And that's what happened with the Catholics. Like when they started teaching stuff that was considered heretical, basically like what you're talking about, They were like, nope, you can go do your own thing, but you're not doing it here. And they maintained their tradition. Like the Orthodox faith has maintained that tradition since Christ and the disciples have been walking around, which is kind of wild to think about. Like,
yeah. And by the way, I like the current Pope.
yeah. Well, okay. So that last comment, the Vatican is just the ruins of the Roman Empire. Just imagine the amount of wealth hidden on 100%. And I think I kind of brought this up like a few last time when I was at work talking about this real quick. I truly think that the Romans were like, we kind of burned that bridge with the Jewish people when when basically like, shit, what was his name? Pontius Pilate, the Roman dude at the time, like in charge at the time, when he put up, I think his name was Barabbas and Christ, and like told the people to pick which one to crucify essentially, and they picked Christ. I think Rome was like, shit, we fucked that one up. So they were like, let's create the Vatican. Let's create the Roman Catholic Church, and we can recoup this.
To celebrate this guy. Yeah.
Yes.
Basically to co-opt the power of his movement.
Yes. Yes. And so they created the Vatican, and then through a series of basically being like, this is how you guys should run the church, created the Catholic Church. And it's funny because you can see the schism between the Catholic Church and the Protestant faith. And then from that branched off Mormonism, which is still very new. Like Mormonism was something that was started when well after America was discovered, and they didn't really have this.
This is actually where like the wild stories that lead to like the beliefs of the religion. I mean, what was the guy's name who started?
Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's basically like, I'd like to be a cult leader.
Right.
So I'm going to call it a religion.
Right. Okay. So Jesus became white in this question. Jesus became white when the Romans basically.
When Larry Bird was born.
Yeah, basically. Like they needed Christ to be more relatable to their people. So the Romans made everything white because that's what they were. That's what they saw on a day-to-day. So that's what they made. The Greeks, Greek Orthodox, they actually portray Christ as more Araby. Because
more
that's what he would have been. Yeah. So but the Joseph Smith
and Ethiopian
thing,
Jesus.
Yeah. So, and that's, God, I can't wait for Sunday because, and this Sunday might be tough because it's my birthday party. So I'm thinking next Sunday, is when we have my wife on to go, because I'm sure I'm chopping this up absolutely horribly. But I don't know. The whole thing is very fascinating to me. And it's one of those things, like when you start to follow the actual history, just put theology off to a side for a minute and just look at these people as like, this is an event that happened during a portion of time, right? Christ lived, I think, 33 years, and we have like documentation of his existence. If you look up the Shroud of Turin, that shit is wild to me. Before they even had cameras, it's basically like a photograph negative on a sheet. And it's very much like, it looks like all the depictions of Christ minus skin color. So it's, there's so much. And we can even talk about like some of the genocide, that happened in the name of Christianity, and where some of the fallacy and all of that is, because we have to remember every human being is imperfect. So anything we put our hands on, we're pretty much guaranteed to corrupt.
The kind of Christian Zionist belief system is wild to me. Because it like, or like Christian national, like American, like
Oh, it's
Like
so far off the mark. It's
let's
insane.
bomb the world and
Yeah.
fuck all these other people. And it's like, I don't think Jesus was. I
Yeah.
don't think that's how he approached other people.
Yeah. No, it's wild, man. And like I said, I know I don't have all the information. A lot of what I've said is really off of like what my wife has learned, and we just about every Sunday we sit in this living room and have about
I'm
a
excited.
4-hour conversation about.
We
this
could do
shit.
this. If in the same way that that Cheddar Bob's wife did the series on herbal medicine, if she did like a every couple week show on like religious, anywhere she wants to bring it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's wild because, okay, so we've probably talked about stuff where someone who is of like one belief system got offended. But what's ironic, what's funny to me is that, let's say there is a God and one of you, right, because you're Orthodox, someone else is Catholic, someone else is Protestant, someone else is Muslim, Jewish, you know, Zoroastrian. So let's say, and I don't think I have any idea which one is, if it is, but let's say one is like, that's what God want. Like, yes, you Zoroastrians are actually the ones who did it right and believed in the monotheist God in the right way. Everybody else, you guys got it wrong. So that means that everybody else is essentially what we poke fun at, like just this wacky cult, right?
Yeah.
So I find that kind of interesting too. Like, you have everything from atheists to people who are very religious, and then they're religious in a under religion in my way, right? And like, that's the only way. But then 99 out of 100 of those, if there is a God, are wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and I have a buddy he's in this category of like, I think there's something out there, but I can't be sure. So I'm just going to live my life like there's nothing out there. And maybe this is flawed, but I go to it as like, just in case. Like I have through all of what makes sense to me critically in a big picture kind of scheme, I look at it kind of like there's something out there just in case.
Yeah, no, that's
and
true.
To that statement, like, God is everywhere, he's everything, he created it all. And I'm going from my belief system, so if I offend anybody, I apologize. But there is a creator, and what the creator made, he offered us free will.
I agree with this.
So it's kind of wild. Let's see. Judeo-Christian values is the dumbest term that was created, so Christians won't associate with Muslim people because they both share Arabic. 100%. The difference is Christ, and this is what's kind of wild. Like, Christ was the intervention for all the fucked up shit that we do, right? Christ was the one who basically is like, you guys will continue to sin. You'll continue to create, pain on this earth. And by accepting and following me, all of that is forgiven. And it goes deeper than that. And I think that's where a lot of the hang up is you can't just take one little piece of any religion and assume that that's the whole thing. And it's one of the things I notice with people who criticize the Bible. They will make a statement and take the entire rest of the Bible out of context. And you can do it with New Testament. You can do it with Old Testament. There's so much. And then when we get into Abrahamic religions, like, those all stem from the same group of people, which is insane to think about. But there's so much when it comes to just context. And the wild thing is, when we look at every other religion, they'll just tell you, the idea is just to be a good person, be a good person, be a good person. if you walk the life of Christ, you will be a good person. Even atheists will say, like, if you were going to model your life after a person that existed,
Well,
Christ is a good model to follow.
In all the different religious texts, the words are fantastic when it comes to, like, the gist of what we're trying to tell you is just be a good person, right?
Yeah.
And so then,
but
it's
that's the thing about the New Testament, though, is the New Testament of the Bible basically says, no, you're not a good person. You can't fully be a good person.
sapient.
Yep. And you need Christ to get outside of that. You need this person as your savior. So it's basically like Christianity is the only religion that tells you what you don't want to hear. All of the other ones will tell you, just be a good person, just be a good person. So there's something to that. And this
I missed that part because I was reading the comments. What is Christianity is saying, in addition to be a good person, it's saying something.
It says,
so what is it?
It's basically like you can try and be a good person, but you won't be. Because of the concept of sin, a lot of the shit we do ultimately is corrupted by our pride, our ego, and our ability to be selfish. The only person that was truly selfless was Christ. He was like the perfect human being. And we there is no way we can follow in all of his steps.
Nobody is going to be at that level.
So,
but what I
Christianity
find ironic,
teaches that we need Christ's salvation. It understands that we can't be perfect. So to accept Christ and basically praying to him in the Lord, that's what saves your soul. Earthly gains don't matter. According to Old and New Scripture, the earth is not the goal. Eternal salvation from Christ is the goal. The Orthodox call it theosis.
And that's in addition to just trying to be as good a person as I can and looking in the mirror every day, I have to pray to Christ to give me the strength to be a good person.
That's it, right there.
But I disagree with that?
To have the other part is to oh shit. I'm sorry,
that's okay.
Is to repent. The other part is to repent, which is saying, I screwed up. I am not a good person. I look back
on my day today or my week or my month, and I wasn't a good person on all fronts at all times. And
I woke up this morning with angry thoughts about somebody in my head. Lord, forgive me. That's the concept. I shot my neighbor a dirty look because she let her dog shit on my lawn and didn't pick it up. Lord, forgive me. All of that shit is what makes us not perfect. And that's all starts with pride. And I'm trying, I don't want to get preachy, so I'm going to back off a little bit. But the point is, all religions.
Jeff, you're like the preachy version of a gentle lover.
Yeah.
You're not rough.
Well, it's funny to me because Kevin, a lot of times we'll get Kevin on here and we'll talk about this, and he'll talk about like how good and gentle of a person I am. And it makes me laugh because there was a point in my life where I was literally trying to fight anybody who would ask my wife. Like there was a point in my life where like we'd be driving down the road and I would see somebody standing on a corner waiting to crosswalk. And in my mind, I'm like, just stop. Let me jump out and beat the fuck out of this person so I feel better. Like, that's not healthy. And so
that's surprising to me because I only have known gentle Jeff.
So that's the thing. I
how
fought
many years
martial
ago
arts
did this happen?
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where I'm like,
when did you make this transition?
Probably like 2016, 2017, maybe just a decade ago, and it's taken a lot. Like I have anger issues like no other. And it's taken not just a lot of prayer, but it's taken like putting myself in situations where people are way more experienced than me to humble myself, because that's what it's about, is humbling yourself. Be humble. remove your pride,
That
remove
I
your
just find
ego.
that's awesome, and I'm very happy. And I know it's a journey and it never ends, but
Yeah.
you from wherever you came, you're an amazing person.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's not without effort. It's not. I'm not going to say it. It's not without God and Christ, because I recognize the fallacy in my mind, and our flesh is sinful and weak, and the only way you get around that is through building up your faith, building up your spirit, and part of that is being humble. Like, Christ hangs out with the homeless. Christ hangs out with the people that you would not think of associating with: the poor, the homeless, the wretched, the sinners. That's where Christ is. He is chilling on this show right now. You know what I mean? Because we aren't perfect. And that's kind of the whole point. And anybody who thinks there's an easy way around that, it ends up getting twisted in your own mind. And that was part of my problem, is like, I was spiritual, but I wasn't really committed. And I saw all these different like avenues of like, oh, this is God and that's God and this is God. And I see this as like a Western form of God. So I disagree with that. And I'm going to latch on to this. And that level of confusion just led me to believe that I had it figured out. And it doesn't feel good when you're walking through the store mad at somebody for no reason and you just want to fucking hit them in the face. And these are people I've never met in my life. So
Yeah.
it's like, why is that a thing? How do I get around being angry all the time? How do I get around to projecting my issues onto other people? It's realizing that I have zero control over that. I just have to find somebody that's humble enough to forgive me. And none of us on this earth are. So
On a just something that randomly popped into my head, and I'd like you and other religious people to weigh in the chat. When like a baseball player hits a home run and then like thanks God, is that like, I always feel like that's not like,
no,
God shouldn't be like hoping, or like in an MMA fight, I beat
yeah,
the crap out of the other guy, and I just like to thank Jesus, my Lord and Savior.
yeah, no. He didn't. Honestly, if he was with anybody, he was with the guy who lost, and the guy who lost should be thanking Christ for losing, because that's the humbling moment. That's the moment that shows you who you really are and who you can really be. So the win. God doesn't give us things for pleasure. He gives us things to teach us stuff, right? Like, God doesn't just give us shit to feel good about. He gives us shit to bring him closer to him. And sometimes he takes shit away to bring us closer to him. When I was working for, I'm going to explain this, and I don't talk about it very much. When I was working for Brother Mendel, I was essentially tortured mentally for 4 or 5 years. And it wasn't anything that he did. It was my own perfection on the work I was doing. And I was at home by myself in solitude. My wife and I would only see each other in passing because she was working a full-time job. We're both taking turns taking care of her grandparents. We were essentially roommates. I don't drive, so leaving the house was really difficult. So I was just here waiting for friends to get off work or anybody who was willing to stop by for some social interactions. It's actually part of the reason why I started helping with this podcast. So every day I would go downstairs, and before I unzipped my tent, I prayed to God to take away this job if it wasn't for me. And he didn't. And I went insane, bro. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, I was starting to question some of the closest relationships I've had with people. I was starting to like make up stories in my head, like, oh, these people are just trying to take advantage of me. Like, this isn't working. I'm trying to do this. And then it got to a point where I was like, starting to get at Brother Mendel, where I was like, fuck, man, this guy's just fucking me. I don't understand why. And I went through all this in my head. And by the time I got laid off, because sales weren't doing that great, he was like, look, man, I'm going to give you like 6 months to find something, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, all right, I appreciate you. So he kept paying me, finished out the work, got the job at the post office. And that was a transition that was the most painful thing, bro. Like, I was away from my wife for a week in Denver. going to this post office school, and my hotel was just like a half a mile maybe from where the school was at. And every day I would walk to the school and like ask God, like, what are you doing to me? This is so far out of my world of familiarity. I have no idea what I'm doing. Just tell me, show me. And I just had to go through it. And now I'm in one of the most blessed seasons of my life, and I owe it all to God in Christ. Like, it's absolutely insane. That's my
That's
Chum.
the
The fish is my Chum from Grassroots. But yeah.
I had no idea what they were talking about. I
Yeah.
saw the comments. Is there a fish on the Grassroots hat? And in my head,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like,
That's a
I
tuna.
didn't even know Grassroots has a hat.
Back in the day, Plant Success, the people who make Great White, their whole marketing strategy was to just hand out Grassroots hats. And so I have like a handful of them, and then they slowed down on that. But yeah, you know, I mean, the fish is very topic, you know, adjacent, because, you know, Christ fed fish to all the people from just a handful of fish, you know. But all of that whole story is really just part of like the shit that has been given and taken from me to grow as a human being. And that really, 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 really all happens through prayer. And that's what led me to the Orthodox faith, is because they're very, very prayer oriented. Their whole, like the whole liturgy, divine liturgy, every Sunday is all about prayer. It's all about repentance. It's all about forgiveness. It's all about getting closer to Christ. And that inherently forces you to turn into a good, you cannot help it. You could be the sternest, biggest asshole in the world, and after a few years of really praying and repentance, you can't help but walk by somebody and be humble. You immediately de-elevate yourself, and it's the best thing I've ever experienced in my life. And it's
Okay. Do you think over the centuries, religious institutions run by men have been a positive benefit or a negative detriment on humans' interactions and relationship with God?
absolutely detrimental. And real quick, Jesus is God. He is the part of the Trinity, Father, Son,
Oh,
Holy
that was
Spirit.
this one.
But yes, Jesus is God. He is God in man incarnate. But to what Peter was saying, yes, absolutely. And the way I can explain that is, prior to all the industrialization, capitalism, all of that, there was a point of Christianity that was enchantment. We all had it. Everybody in the world was enchanted. That's where fairies and leprechauns and fucking all these little stories came about. And that was through this ability to accept what is supernatural. And over the modernization of society, we've lost this ability to accept the supernatural. And you can push that into, you know, you can go all the way into Asian culture and go before Christ and tell me those people weren't enchanted with the supernatural. It's something that's encoded into us. We can't
Forgot
help
about
it.
all the Eastern religions when we were
Yeah,
taught.
yeah,
So
yeah.
did your wife also study Eastern religions
She got
as part
into
of
a
like the
little bit
broader
of them, but not
theology?
super deep. Yeah, because that is Eastern theology is like its whole other realm, because it predates Christ by so fucking much. And it's like, in order to do that, you have to really get into the paganistic theology. And I don't want to get into a debate, but yes, Jesus is God. He is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It I that's a theological debate for somebody who is in a lot more experienced in knowledge, because that comes down to like your theology between what church you go to, right? Like that's one of those right and wrong things. And that's not a conversation I want to get into. But
Just
it
quickly,
really is an interesting exchange when you get in. Like, if my wife and I don't see names, but my wife, if they were to get together and have this debate, it would be one of the most entertaining
Yeah.
things.
Fuck. Well, were you always Orthodox, or is it a more recent thing?
It's more recent. I was actually raised
And
Catholic.
what about okay? And then what about your wife?
She was raised Protestant.
So I find this interesting because it's almost like she's studied every religion and then been like, "That's the one for me." Did she influence you
No,
or you influenced her? Like, who picked it first?
when we got together, neither one of us knew Orthodoxy was a thing.
Okay.
We didn't know anything about it.
And what year was that?
We got together in the end of 2015.
Okay.
And we've just been on this. It's been insane, bro. When I got with my wife, she was like hella into astrology. She was telling me about my signs, and I guarantee you she could have a conversation with you right now and guess your sign just based off of your personality. It's fucking weird to me. But as you get more into scripture, you'll find out that astrology is demonic. So yeah, stay away from that shit. Because when you start getting into, again, the enchantment side, it's like a Ouija board. You'd be surprised what you can open doors to without even realizing it. So God came before the Big Bang. But anyway, yeah, shit. Okay, so me and my wife, I gotta go back. We met doing martial arts. She was married, I was not. This was back in like 2012. Basically, I was training her and her husband at the time how to fight.
This is fun.
And I would, on a nightly basis, I would beat the crap out of her husband at the time. And then me and her husband were fighting on the same card in Colorado Springs. He lost in like the first or second round. I beat the shit out of this dude for 3 rounds. We came back and I didn't see him for 3 years. My buddy at the time had his birthday. It was like June. And he was like, "You're coming to the bar." I don't drink. I don't go to the bar. They damn near kidnapped me from my dad's place. Was like, "You're fucking coming." I was like, "All right, I'll have a couple beers." So he pulls me to the bar, drags me. I go have like a beer or two. It's like 10 o'clock. I'm leaving. And here comes my future wife stumbling down the fucking sidewalk, getting ready to go into this bar. And I just happened to be like, "Hey, Sarah, what's up?" And we started chatting. I went over to her house and I never left. And here I am. That was a pivotal moment in both of our lives. And as we moved forward, like, I think it was like we'd been together for like a month, and we had this massive mushroom trip together, and it was like a great fucking time. And my wife looks over and she goes, "I think we love each other." That was weird. But that level of honesty just kept us growing and growing and growing and growing as a couple. And there became this point where we started challenging each other to basically be better people. And through that, we shared one common thing. And I'm telling you, my wife and I are opposites on everything you could possibly imagine. She prefers alcohol. I prefer weed. She's short. I'm tall. She's a little chunkier. I'm a skinnier. Like, we do not enjoy the same foods. Everything we do is different. We are literally 6 months apart. If you're in the astrology world, she's Scorpio. I'm Taurus. She was born in October. I'm born in April. Like, we are on she loves fall. I love spring. All the way on the opposite ends of everything. We haven't had a fight ever. Our biggest argument is over Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. So as we're growing, like,
and can you give me an example of a jiu-jitsu argument?
Yeah, so she's practiced jiu-jitsu for a long time. I've practiced Muay Thai for a long time. And she's like, "Well, your legs are long, so I'm going to hem you up as soon as I get close." And I'm like, "Good luck getting close." And she's like, "Well, all I have to do..."
Is this like during foreplay, or where are you guys doing this?
in the living room just as we're drinking coffee.
That's awesome. Let's wrestle.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's spar for a bit.
I don't even know
before
how
we
it
start
comes
our
up.
morning.
But yeah, something will pop up and I'm like, well, fuck, you couldn't do that. She's like, well, watch me. Yeah, it's the funniest shit in the world. But we would always have these moments of conversation about theology, because if anybody's Protestant, you know the concept sola scriptura, which means God's word only. As long as you have relationship with Christ, you're saved. That's it. And that's not true. And there's a lot of cases in the Bible that refute that, basically saying the church is important. The church is what helps you grow your faith. You know, she uses that. She'll tell you. She's like, my low base will fuck you up. She's like, when I lower my center of gravity, you can't do shit to me, which is true. I'm
gonna use that on my wife today. I'm gonna be like, you look a little chubby in that outfit.
But there was this point of like, we would do, because Catholic, it's very like repentance and prayer is very important. But there were things that the Catholic Church was doing that I absolutely did not agree with. And I'm like, this is heretical. If the Pope is supposed to be infallible, this is wrong. This goes against what it says in the Bible. And he's saying shit that goes like that. That can't be a thing. God can't contradict himself. It's part of his nature. So it made me question what church I was a part of.
Which Pope and what was he saying?
All the popes.
Just in general.
Just in general. Like, even now, if you look at shit that the Pope is saying and doing is heretical. There's the idea that the Pope can say whatever he wants, and that is basically viewed as God's speaking voice. Like, that's all the Pope is really, according to Catholics, the Pope is just God's megaphone.
Do you think this Pope believes that he's God's speaking voice, or do you think he's more humble than that? I view him as more humble and like isn't trying to tell everybody like, I hear like God talks to me in the morning and I come out and tell you.
But despite how he sees himself, that's how the Catholic Church views him. Like, the theology of the Catholic Church puts that on him, not himself. And so when he gets voted as
and this gets back to, that seems like an example to me of like somewhere along the line of popes, one was like, I'm gonna change it so that I'm God's voice.
Yeah, and I don't know,
not just someone doing my best to like tell you what I think.
See, and
but that I am actually God's voice.
So I think that happened when the Catholics separated from the Orthodoxy, and the Orthodox was like, no, you can't do that. And this guy was like, yeah, I'm the Pope. God told me. He told me I'm his voice. So and that's when there was a split between the Orthodox, the schism between the Orthodox and the Catholics. So, and that was one of the big things, is infallible Pope, or papacy infallibility. And that it was the first Pope that said that and just passed that along as part of the theology of their church.
What year? When was the first Pope? Like what century?
God, I want to say it was like
talking like 700.
Yeah, so like 6 or 7. My wife has those dates, so when she comes on, she'll be able to say when that schism was.
Who was the first?
But yeah, you could Google it probably. Look up the schism between Orthodox and Catholics.
Well, Saint Peter is recognized as the first Pope, but let's go to the first like.
Type in schism of Catholic and Orthodox, and it should give you, I want to say it was like 400 something, but that might have been like or maybe like 1200. I can't remember.
Okay, here we go. Who is the second Pope?
Oh yeah, George Carlin was
Saint Linus is generally regarded as the second Pope. But that I didn't realize the Pope went back to.
Yeah, it's wild. That's the history is fucking.
The years, so that from the year Saint Peter, the year 30, so 30 years after. So then it's just gone on from then. Okay. I thought, yeah, I thought it was much later.
So when me and my wife discovered Orthodoxy, we both started looking into it, and it was wild how we both started agreeing on shit. Because I was constantly like we went.
But how did it cross your path? Like, were you like online or something, or like in a bookstore, or
Brother
talking to
Mendel,
someone?
bro.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Okay.
That's
So
why
that's what
he's
he
like
is.
family to me now, dude. I met Brother Mendel in like 2016, 2017 on Facebook. Just through helping, like I was starting a Kush coach. I was helping people through their grow shit. And all of a sudden this dude hit me up and he was like, hey, you should check out my gear. And I was like talking shit. I was like, dude, everybody tells me that. Send me some freebies and I'll check it out. And he sent me some. I rocked him and I was like, all right, this is legit. So I started just talking to him. And after a few months, he was like, I asked him, I was like, are you like a descendant of Gregor Mendel? And he was like, no, this is just an homage. And you're the first person to ever pick that up. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, most people don't go there. I was like, all right. So then we started talking like more in-depth shit. And we started talking through Telegram, and he had this Contra Veri Mundi something. It was Greek. And I asked my wife, I was like, you know what this is? She's like, no. And I asked him, I was like, this is going to sound weird, but I was like, are you Catholic? He's like, used to be. I'm what's considered Greek Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox Catholic. I was like, okay. And I told my wife that, and she goes, oh, those guys are hardcore. Like, if you watch an Orthodox priest baptizing a baby, it'll freak you out. Like, there is no gentle, bro. They like
It's
fucking
like
it's wild.
kind of like how my 4-year-old treats her dolls.
Yeah. They are so
with
rooted
savagery.
Yeah. And that's really it. They're just deeply rooted in tradition. And so even like, I'm trying to be careful on how I say this, but like, because of Christ and the disciples' relationship with the Jewish community at the time, they take certain shots that are intended to like not necessarily offend but piss them off. Like if you look at Greek Orthodox guys, they look very similarly to like Jewish Pharisees, and they do it because it makes Jewish people upset. Like when an Orthodox guy walks through Jerusalem with a beard, they get like dirty looks. They'll get like spat on and shit.
Yeah.
It's fucking wild. So I don't know. That type of shit is funny because they do kind of like use their righteous view of their faith as a way to like provoke and get people to like see shit that's, I don't know. That all is kind of beyond my
provoke
understanding.
like an asshole provokes people, or provoke in a like to have a positive outcome.
It's to have this. It's not to like piss
to try to
off,
open someone else's mind up,
but it's to say like we came from the same place, and that the idea of like our belief system was rooted from your belief system. You chose a path and we chose a path, but we came from the same place.
So we're a fork in the road, similar to how Catholicism and Protestantism was another fork.
Yeah, bro. And that's been one of my things with religion all over the place. Is
Orthodox are basically saying
splits.
We are Jews, but we disagree on this thing, which is that Christ was.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the whole Old Testament comes from Torah. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize that. Like, all of the Old Testament comes from Torah. That's all a Jewish
Right.
book. The New Testament is documentation of Christ's existence.
And then what's the Talmud? That's more
That,
modern, right?
yeah. Like really
It's
modern.
like the Schofield Bible.
Yeah. It's like what everybody accuses the Bible of, like, it's what everybody accuses the King James Bible of being. It's just like a modern mashup of what all the current existing believers just follow. Like if you go to, like
So
Kevin was
which
even
Bible
talking
do you
about it.
read?
Yeah.
No,
That's
no,
what he
you.
was reading. He wasn't reading Torah.
Which Bible do you read?
So
Is there like a the Orthodox Study Bible?
yeah, nowhere on here does it say King James. It does reference King James. It'll compare.
So is it earlier than King James, or is it like when did the King James Bible come into? So
that
many questions
is
for Google.
that's one I can't answer because this is where the canonization of the Bible comes in, because
1611 King James Bible.
yep.
Okay.
But the King James, this is where it gets tricky, because the King James Bible,
Its initial reception was slow.
yeah.
Didn't catch on with full recognition coming years later, particularly after the 1770 was kind of when the King James started to gain steam.
Yep. So that's the kick right now, is the Ethiopian Bible was put together like well before that, like in the 400s. Like Christianity reached Ethiopia in like 400 AD. It was like one of the when Christianity was starting to spread type thing.
Yeah, 4th or 6th century.
Yep.
4th to 6th centuries.
So you can see, like, when people start talking about, and this is what gets me excited, because everybody's starting to talk about like the early day Bibles. Like when people start bringing up the Ethiopian Bible, I'm like, now we're getting into Orthodox churches. This is when the practice of Christianity was still very much alive, and this is where the Orthodox Church starts to become relevant, because who brought the Bible to Ethiopia? Had to be like the people who were originally canonizing the Bible, and that, or like people, like I can trace my martial arts training four instructors to Bruce Lee. He would be the fourth. So there's Bruce Lee, and then three people, and then me, right? So like you could do that on like one hand back then, where you're like, oh, I learned it from this guy, I learned it from this guy, who learned it from this disciple,
who learned it from Jesus.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know, it's an exciting concept to me. Like, it's a fun topic to chat about, even if you're not being preachy.
Well, so just what you brought up reminded me of like reading like trade routes and kind of the spread of religions based on like I was looking at one where is it? It's somewhere on like the western coast of India, that maybe they're Muslim, and Islam came in from like Dubai, like somewhere on the peninsula, right? Like, so you have like ships coming in and like ideas coming in, and so like just like the spread of human like the Silk Road.
Yeah.
And
There's like a cultural influence, and that happened.
ideas, food.
Yeah. And that was one of the things, like my wife and I were looking at the Ethiopian Bible, and there was literally like 3 or 4 slight things in the Ethiopian Bible, and my wife was able to pick them out actually and go, oh, that was a cultural thing, meaning they saw or experienced something in Ethiopia and they connected that to the Bible, and that's what they added to it. So you can look at the Ethiopian Bible and literally go, this is the same, this is the same, oh, that's new. This is the same, this is the same, oh, that's new. And look at those new things and be like, oh, this would have been a thing that Ethiopian people would have experienced on a day-to-day thing, on a day-to-day thing, and that would have triggered this.
But what kind of thing? Like a memory of what Jesus supposedly said or did, or like a scene, or
Or like,
because then people who follow other books would be like, that's blasphemy because that didn't happen. That's you Ethiopians making it up because.
yep, and that's essentially what has happened all the way. Like, look at Mormonism,
Right.
and I'm not trying to take shots at any Mormons, but that's exactly what has happened. It just fucking snowballs, disconnected snowball over and over and over. And that's why tradition is so important. That's why the Orthodox is like holds tight to tradition. That's why they don't recognize a pope, because that's out of tradition. The only person that's really truly the voice of God would have been Christ. So
It would actually be folly to put this role in. I mean, we all know what man is like. The likelihood that 100 straight popes are good people, right?
exactly.
Statistically, not so great. Right? You got
Yeah.
some sociopaths in there, some,
Yeah.
and sure, you have some good people too, right? But
Yep. And that's why,
yeah,
again,
that's my
wife
issue with like putting man between someone and his relationship with a god is like, I'm happy to have people teach me, right? But then it's like, I'm good. I'm just going to do my own thing. I don't need.
Well, there's two sayings that really clicked with me when I started learning about the Orthodox faith. And one of them is, only God knows your heart. I can sit here and talk about all the shit, but only God knows where your heart's at. Is your heart truly humble? Right? Oh yeah, those would be fun to talk about too. There's a lot. The other one is, we know where God is, but we can't say where he isn't. And that's essentially admitting, like, we don't even have the answers. We hold tradition because that's how we see that's how we attest to getting closer to God, is by the things he taught the disciples. Does that mean that Christ and God can't work outside of that? Absolutely not. He can be wherever he wants, whenever he wants. And that's why I say this podcast is not church, but he can be here, right? Like, you could be at work and he could be there. We don't know. We know, we can say for sure that he is in certain spots, but I can't say that he's not there. I can't say that he's not there. I can't say he's not in the Catholic Church. I can't say he's not in the Protestant Church. I can't say he's hanging out with or not hanging out with Buddhists. We don't claim to know all of that. We just know where he is, and that's where we go.
Let me ask this. So let's say you're spiritual, like you believe in a God, but to what we were talking about earlier, I don't give thanks to Jesus all the time, but I lead from outside objective observers, when I die, they'll be like, Peter was a good guy. Do you think when I go, that God will be like, you were a good guy, but you're still going to hell?
There's an opportunity. So now we're getting into some of the theology, but from what I understand is, and this is why the saints are a thing. And we don't pray to the saints as far as like asking them for salvation, but it's basically like, I can pray for your soul, Peter. So when you die, I can pray that you are accepting of Christ in the afterlife, meaning that you'll be given an opportunity to accept Jesus and accept God and accept that. And if your heart is truly there, you're up there. From what I understand, if you deny Christ in the afterlife, that's it. Like, if you're like, nah, fuck you, guy.
But but can you imagine anybody like, oh my God, you're real? Like, holy shit. Yeah, I believe in you now. Right. Like that,
Some people's pride and ego are so deep that even in
that
the
they're like, I'd rather
afterlife,
go to
they
hell
would
for
rather go to hell.
eternity.
Yep. Yep. And that's scary to think about, to be like, those people, some of those people are walking around right
I'm
now.
standing before you right now. You're as real as anything.
And that's where humility comes from. That's why it's so important. So important to just be a loving, humble human being. And that's what we would describe as a good person, but it's not easy. I I get mad at myself sometimes because I'm like, fuck, you got to be more patient. Like you can't just like have these thoughts and say things about these people. You that's not the way to be. And in the moment, again, our flesh is weak. So in the moment, you don't think about it till afterwards, and you're just like, oh, damn it. And that's where I get, thankful for Christ. I think there is a point where there is no turning back. Somebody mentioned the Epstein Island, and there is scripture
Really?
that
I missed that.
says
How did I miss
basically to
that?
tie rocks around these people's necks for those who harm the innocent.
Right. So the question is that what Jesus would say you should do or not?
I
Or is that what we're talking about, or something different?
I think it's God's view of those people. It's not my responsibility to condemn those people. That's all God and Christ get to work that out. That's
But
above my spiritual pay grade,
well,
if you
maybe
will.
within religion, but from a legal standpoint, right? Like what they did, society has deemed hugely morally and legally wrong,
Absolutely.
and they should pay the price. And then, like, to the religious angle, then like God, their souls are with God. But I didn't see that. Where was the Epstein thing?
Oh, it was way up there. I'm trying to remember. Oh, these comments are fun.
Well, I like that some people are digging. Like, I'm not religious, but I'm totally down to hear people talk about the history of religion, different religions, the differences between them,
Well, just lived
the
experience.
schisms.
Yep. There's, to me, the wildest thing are the misconceptions. Like, people talk about the Bible like they understand it 100% full in context. And most people haven't read the Bible. Like, you would, even my wife, she's read the Bible from cover to cover like 4 or 5 times in her life. And we still discuss things where it's like, oh, that's the context. I didn't understand that this entire time until this context was shown to me. And this is where people get crazy over interpreting the Bible. And there is a correct way to interpret the Bible. People talk about the language that it was written in, and they don't understand what life was like. They don't put that in context of what life was like for the people who were writing the shit down.
Can I just ask a quick question, because I'm totally gonna forget it?
uh-huh.
So you have great conviction in your religious beliefs, as do lots of people who are in other religions. So my question is kind of like, wouldn't it be, if being humble is one thing, like to say I am absolutely right in my convictions is not humble, but to
No.
say I'm not positive, but this is where I want to put my convictions and efforts, and other people can do as they please, and I may be wrong, but I'm okay with that because this is what I believe. And I feel like if I was God, I'd be like, that's a fucking good dude. Like,
Well, and that's it. So it's not my job.
humble.
It's not my job to argue theology. You have free will. You were given free will. You're allowed to believe and do whatever you want. I will talk about why I am the way I am and why I believe what I believe. And that's why I shy away from trying. I am very convicted, but I do not want to come off as like, you need to do this. I'm right. I'm right. I'm right. Because again, I am not the decider. It's all above my pay grade. I can just share my lived experience. As far
Yeah.
as what, as far as my salvation goes, all I can do is, like you said, I love my neighbor like I love myself. And I will not chastise, I will not berate anybody who believes differently than me, because like you said, that's not humble. When I start talking about the church, this is amongst people who accept Christianity, accept God, accept Christ, and now they are bound by God and Christ's word, which is the Bible. And if you pick and choose and restructure how all that's worded, now you're getting into what's considered heresy. And there is a right and a wrong way. So within the realm of Christianity, there is truth and there's deception, and that's it. So when it comes to how to be and how to treat your neighbor, how to treat the people around you, that needs to be at a place of humility, meaning that I am low as dirt and will never be higher. And I need to treat people like I am, meaning when there's this story in the Bible where a Pharisee who is like a Jewish religious leader and a tax collector were praying in the temple. And the Jewish Pharisee was praying to God and saying, thank you for not making me like him. Thank you for making me where, you know, this position in the church. And the other gentleman was literally just being like, I'm so sorry to be here and to present you with my problems. I'm not worthy. I'm basically scum of scum. God favors that guy over the Pharisee. And the reason is humility. And we need to treat the people in our lives with that same level of humility. I'm not worthy. And that's where true change in your heart happens. That's where you stop wanting to beat the shit out of everybody you come across and start looking like friendly Jeff. And it's true transformation in your heart. And I believe people can achieve that through any other religion, right? It doesn't have to be Christianity. I feel like you can achieve that level of humility through other religious pathways. As far as your choice of deity goes, I believe there's truth and not truth, but I don't necessarily express that to everybody because it's not my place. Like you said, it's not humble of me to be that way. When the opportunity presents itself and the communication is open, I'll mention it. Kind of like where we're at, right? I was not expecting to go here this morning. Because
I don't think anyone was.
it's just one of those things where I'm like,
Raise your hand if you're like, I bet today it's going to be a heavy dose of religious conversation.
Yeah, it's wild. And there's a lot of questions around it. And, I saw one, why does one need religion to be a good person? This is going to come from debates, but where does your morality come from? Because I can tell you where mine comes from. But when you don't follow any type of religion, who dictates morality? Society, which means it can change, which means one day we can say killing babies is okay as long as they're not born yet.
Right. But for stuff like that, it's like having conviction and confidence in your own morality right? Like,
where does that
I
morality, where does your own morality come from?
well, you're saying it comes from God, but it could come from within, right? Like that could be like each of us, because then you have like control and stuff, right? So what
So
if
what put that
God's
in you?
God,
You
God,
just were just
but what?
inherently born with good, the knowledge of good and evil.
Well, the question is, to me, it would make more sense that God's going to judge me based on not say I gave it to you and you made all the right choices just like I gave to you. Like I would I don't feel disrespectful to God to say, if there is a God, to say I believe I looked at the world and to the best I could I wanted to be a good person, and based on life, like my parents, right, like people around me, good influences on me, situations I've encountered, my own brain processing all that is kind of like how I decide my own personal, as this one person going through life by myself, version of morality. um and then I hope you judge me, you know, I'm happy to be judged at the end of my life based on the life I lived, and I hope you, God, like thought I did a pretty good job.
That's humility. That's, yeah, that's going at it with humility, I think, because we're given an opportunity with what we know, right? Like, for somebody who's never had the opportunity to read the Bible or even hear about the Bible, God's gonna weigh that, right? Like that's part of his, and we, our human boundaries don't apply to him. It, whatever. I say him because of Christ. But so, you know, the knowledge we're offered, we're judged on what we do with that knowledge. So that's again where I ask, like, where does your morality come from? Because there, if you say it's just something I'm born with, then as a Christian, I accept that because there's a piece of God in us. There, we are a part of him. We were created of him. So there's a part of him in us. And so I'll accept, like, we were born with this inherent ability to discern right and wrong. Right. So if you don't acknowledge God, then your morality comes from your experience on earth, right? Meaning that it's essentially nature versus nurture. Like, if you're born into a world that is perfectly okay with people who enjoy Epstein's Island, you're just going to think that's the norm and accept it. And
Right.
people
No,
were good
but
with
all
it.
right. So like someone mentioned slavery, and
Slavery.
it's
Okay,
like
so I was going to bring that up.
at the time when slavery was around, I'm sure there were lots of people who were like, "This is fucking horrific." Like,
So a lot of the
I can't
slavery
believe
back
we.
then was criminal. So you violated the law and that was your punishment. A lot of the slavery too was, I have a debt and you're in servitude to these people until that debt is paid off. That was a lot
Well,
of the slavery.
that's like serfs and stuff. But if you go back to like 2,500 years ago, it
So
was
they,
we conquered you, and
yeah.
you're all now slaves.
So, and that happened even before Christ.
Right.
If one culture conquered another culture, it enslaved them. There's a portion of the Bible where it instructs people with slaves to treat them essentially like family. Like, you're not to treat your slaves any lower than you. So now it's basically like, I've adopted a family member that works because it's like instructed not to beat your slaves, not to treat them the way we would perceive slaves being treated. The people that, again, though, we're talking about an entire world that's corrupted by evil and has been, meaning your ability to choose right and wrong is corrupted by sin, meaning that your pride will justify and allow you to do and say shit that's wrong. And the Bible accepts that. It's how do you come back from that? How do you come back from all the shit that's not good that you've said and thought and did? How do you know that that shit is bad? Right? That's where like your guilt comes from. Like if I like yell at somebody across the street, fuck you piece of shit, and they're just looking at me like, what the fuck? It was my pride that caused me to do that. And if I don't like feel bad for it, then there's something wrong with me. And anybody would say that, like, why are you being a dick, right? We have all these negative connotations for actions and even a facial thing. Like when I'm annoyed, dude, I'll get like, what the fuck? And my wife says it. There was one time one of her friends came we were hanging out, like doing shopping. One of her friends came up to us without even thinking about it. I couldn't control it. Like she walked up, I looked at her, gave her a sour look and went, oh, fuck. And I said it out loud to where her friend was like, what the fuck? Like, I felt bad after that. Whether it was justified or not.
Inside voice. I mean, no, what do you call it? Not inside voice. Like
no
in your
filter.
Head. Did I say that out loud?
Yeah. So it's like all these things that we do that aren't kind. They're not humble. And it's like, how do you keep that in check? And I think, again, all other religions, there's a variation of teaching you what it means to be a good person. And all of like, I think outside of religious texts, we're just animals. Like if we disregard everything about us that is supernatural, i.e. a part of something greater than ourselves, then we're just fucking animals. And if that's the case, then everything's on the table. Meaning when I do want to beat the fuck out of somebody, I can, and there should be no consequences. That's scary to think about. Like, so the gathered morality of like what is good and what is bad, it shifts without something anchoring it down. That's been my thing. Like morality can shift unless something holds it in a relative place. And that to me is theology. It's religion. It's spirituality. It's something beyond yourself. So it's kind of wild. And so one of the comments, I don't need religion to tell me how to be a good person. What determines a good person? And where does that come from? I go back to that. What determines a good person and where does that determination come from? I say it comes from God, which is religion. Theology is religion. So
let me, I just went to the bathroom and my deep thought in the bathroom was, we humans have a very, like, it's like, remember the earth was the center of the universe until we discovered that it wasn't. And so it's like, what if because I just looked up how many stars there are in the universe, and it's 200 sextillion to 1 septillion, which is a lot of stars. So the likelihood that there's other intelligent life out there, and then kind of the connection between them and our like very human centric and grown religious beliefs. A lot of religions, and then we're potentially not even alone in the universe. And then what do they think, right?
I'm smoking Durban poison from my homie David.
Sorry, what was that what Dave was saying was his giggly weed?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's got me on fucking
preacher
level, apparently. Holy shit.
It's your book. Before Jeff gets up in front of the congregation, the flock.
Yeah, right. Well, it's just
German.
Fun to me. It's a fascinating topic. I truly don't want to offend anybody, but if I, inspire a person, that's cool. But I just want people to know where I'm at. You know, my
Yeah,
lived
no. As I
experience.
said, you're a very gentle,
Yeah.
religious opinion lover,
Yes.
right?
Yes. That's it.
Like I don't, you know, that like the where does my morality come from? I'm happy to disagree on it and
Well,
articulate kind of, you know, because who knows who's right or wrong, and I'm
and
always
that's
willing to
it.
learn. And
Yeah. And that's it. And that's honestly like, and that's why there's certain things that I like to, I'm not trying to be preachy, and I don't necessarily want to debate, because those are two things that basically put one person above the other in the conversation at the end of the day. And I don't want it to be like that. I like a healthy
I like
exchange like
respectful
this.
debate, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that's what I've always strived for, is like with all, the whole concept of FCP was like I wish there weren't so much yelling at each other, but more like
Right.
Lincoln Douglas debate style conversations on whatever the topic is.
Yeah. Well, and there's no fucking way. I mean, if there's 20 people watching right now, plus you, there's no
Yes.
way we're all going to agree on shit. Right.
One of my best nights, weed nights ever, was
Yeah.
in high school. I I we were still in high school, but my friend's older brother, I think, had a U-Haul packed up to leave the next day to drive all his shit to college. So in the back of the U-Haul was just like couches and like a couch and like shit to sit on. So we all night just sat out in the U-Haul with the back open on the couches, smoking weed, listening to music, talking, giggling, eating food, and like looking up at the stars and talking about the cosmos and the universe. And it's like, that's enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's ultimately like, at the end of the day, we're here to have a positive interaction with our fellow human beings, and that's that's where we get this idea of being a good person. To me, it's like that's the root of morality. Is like, I should love you the same way I love my wife, right? As far as like, I have this deep rooted compassion. I would sacrifice whatever I have to help you ease your life, pain, whatever. And to offer that to everybody we walk past without any level of judgment. Meaning, if I didn't know Epstein and he asked me for a place to sleep, I would let him, despite what I learn about him later on. And that's fucking absolutely hard to accept.
Well, okay. How about if you do learn about him? Because aren't the teachings of Jesus, like, what would Jesus do if Epstein showed up hungry?
He would
Right? Like,
feed him.
didn't Jesus accept everyone and feed them?
Yeah, he would feed him. And if Epstein asked Christ for forgiveness and truly changed his heart, he would be forgiven. And I can't fucking wrap my mind around that. I still am like, how? And that's beyond why. Like, there's some things we just
But
don't get to know, and we'll never know. And
a scenario I could envision in that scenario is he asks forgiveness, is forgiven, and then does it again. Right? Like, so then what
that's,
would happen in that situation?
I
Like,
can't
at some
say.
point, is it like, you're all right, I gave you like every chance, you are absolutely going to hell?
Yeah,
Versus like coming back and be like, can you forgive me again?
only God knows his heart. That's the answer. When I ask shit like that, that's the answer I always get. Only God knows his heart. So there is nothing on this planet that will answer that question for us. Only God knows. And the only way you'll know, if you're looking for that satisfaction in the afterlife, just believe in God. And then when you get up there, you'll see where Epstein's at and you'll have the answer. Like that's literally the only way to find that shit out, which is a relief to me. Like we all say ignorance is bliss, but then we want to know shit that we probably don't really want to know the answer to. So that saying, only God knows his heart, gives us that out. It's like our way of being like, I don't know. I'll never know. Same with like when people are like, well, are you saying that God isn't in the Buddhist temple? I know where God is, but I can't say where he isn't.
Yeah, no, I was looking up Buddhism, which does not believe in a single God. Hold on, where'd my
And that's where
all my searches, like when did the Ethiopian Bible come out?
no, it's fun because I would love to get somebody who really does like follow the Buddhist way and see like, tell me about your lived experiences. Same thing I'm doing here. And I want to see your path and conviction as well,
Yeah.
because those are the things that connect us as human beings. Those are the things that strengthen our compassion for one another. The idea of being right is not fucking humble at all. Any notion towards I have to convince these people, that's the opposite of humility. And it's fucking hard. Like it's ugh.
See, I as I'm thinking about this, I feel like if a bunch of people who lived a good life, like were trying to be good people to the best of their abilities, and other people at their funeral would say the same. If like 20 of us were all holding hands and died together, that suddenly we all pop up before God, that I would hope that a God would be merciful on the people who didn't do it whichever of the thousand ways or the right way, and let them in.
And that's where
So,
only God knows your heart comes in, because at the end of the day, like you have it. So that's what we were talking about earlier. Like at the end of the day, you have the option to accept or deny. So we're going through this life the best we know how, the with what we've got, and you attempt this humble, caring, loving life, whether it's through Christianity or another system of belief, and you apply that with every ounce of your being to just try and spread some good to the world. I think that's accepted. I can't say for sure, but from what I know about God and Christ, is it's accepted. And you have the opportunity to accept back even when you die. It doesn't have to be accepted when you're alive. And I may be wrong as far as like the Orthodox theology on this, but it's what logically makes sense to me, which I know God doesn't always follow logic. So this is where it gets tricky for me, because I'm not perfect. I'm not an expert. I don't know it all, but I can just assume I can connect dots that I'm capable of. And that to me says that these people still get an opportunity to go to heaven. They still get an opportunity to look Christ in his face and go, oh shit, man, I was wrong the whole time. And he'll go, yeah, but it's okay, because I saw your heart. Come on up. That's how I see it. Again,
that's how I
theologically,
see it too,
yeah, theologically, is it correct with whatever?
or how I would hope. Because
I,
if that wasn't the case, then I'd be like, God's not like my view of morality. I don't think you're being very good right now.
well, and that's the thing. So in the Bible, it says that we all will get an opportunity to accept Christ. So what happens when you die before you even have heard his name? There's an opportunity at some point after you die. So then it just comes down to, did you accept that inherent morality that you were born with?
So something, just before I forget it, thinking about like, there was a lot of human history before Judaism, the coming of Christ. So it's like,
And we
I
were
wonder,
sacrificing babies back then, like to
but I
gods.
wonder what the religions were, because actually someone was talking about the the cradle of civilization. Yeah, but so it's almost like the unfair advantage that more modern religions had on taking root than like maybe some of the older ones that died off. Uh,
Well,
yeah, human
that's
history is.
oh, now we're getting into why, because if you go back, like everybody brings up the Book of Enoch and like why that was left out of the Bible, and now we're getting into like why Orthodox and Catholic have different kind of apocrypha. Their canon looks a little different because they've accepted and blocked out other stuff, and like there's certain apocrypha that's not a part of the Bible that the Orthodox Church still recognizes because they view it as historically significant. So the Book of Enoch kind of falls not necessarily in the accepted apocrypha because it's so far apart from Enoch. But essentially, like that's why the flood happened, was because there was this like phase of when God cast out the angels. They came down on earth, bred with human women. Those women like gave birth to the Nephilim. The Nephilim
I'm
are
an angel. I'm
essentially
not just a man.
like the angels bred with the women, yeah, and made babies, and that became the Nephilim, and the Nephilim essentially were demons, and that's what was basically started all the evil. That's like where it's where like all the demonic stuff came from, and that was part of the enchantment time, like all these like creatures people saw and talked about, like that was part of that. The giants were like part of that, and it's kind of wild when you really like look into some of that stuff, because you're like, oh, there's like evidence of giant bones, like huge fucking people, and then there's this ancient book that talks about what happened when these angels bred with human women, like, and so God felt the need to wipe that out with a flood. And I don't know, that type of stuff, there's no way to say is or isn't, but it's just kind of interesting things to look into.
Wait, is the flood then Noah's Ark?
Mm-hmm.
So do you believe that that's a literal or like a figurative story?
I think it's literal, because there was documents of all regions in all theology that have documentation of a flood around the same time in human history, like a worldwide flood.
But a flood where like one dude built a boat and all the animals of the universe or the world like climbed onto it,
or the ones that God deemed important enough to continue on. I don't know. That's beyond my realm of comprehension, but it's a part of my faith, so I accept it.
Got it.
As ignorant as that may seem, there's wild stuff, man. You could go on for days and days and days and days and days, and I'm stoked to get my wife on and chat about this some more, because she can go into it in a little bit more educated structure than just my perception, at least on this topic. But I'd love to hear from other people.
It was a good overview.
Yeah, it was really good. I enjoyed it. But yeah. I appreciate everybody humbly listening to all this and not going off the rails in the comments.
Some people have been hitting the rails.
Yeah,
but they've been like, no, but I like your, I don't agree with everything you believe, but I think we had a good, as I said, you're a gentle religious lover.
I appreciate
the religious dialogue version of a lover.
Yes, exactly. I appreciate that. I really do, Peter. And all of everybody watching, I love you guys. Start with being a good person and then see where that takes
The
you.
one takeaway from today's conversation is just be a good person.
Yeah, and see where that gets you. You know?
Right. And where it gets all of us collectively.
Exactly.
If everybody was just a good person.
Yes, exactly.
All right. I will
All right,
let you. So by the way, is your birthday tomorrow or
It's
Sunday?
on, I was born on Earth Day, the 22nd.
Okay.
But we're having a party on Sunday.
Got
And
it.
then
Well,
all the
happy
420
early birthday.
festivities.
Right.
Appreciate you.
All
All
right.
right, guys. Much love.
Later.
Later.